समझ नहीं आ रहा अपने सैलरी इंक्रीमेंट का क्या करूं।
बेटा इतना क्या सोच रहा है, अपने म्यूचुअल फंड्स के एसआईपी का टॉपअप करा ले। दिस इज द राइट टाइम।
क्या समझ में नहीं आया।
बेटा इतना क्या सोच रहा है, अपने म्यूचुअल फंड्स का एसआईपी टॉपअप करा ले। दिस इज द राइट टाइम।
अब समझा।
Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme-related documents carefully.
Let's take a little break from the heartland politics and talk about this tiny state, tiny and beautiful state, why it matters, and what is it that we know about it, and what is it that we need to know. Now, Mizoram is a state, as we know, in India's northeast. In fact, on the eastern side, it is the southernmost state in India, tiny state. 2011 census, it had less than 12 lakh people. That's all. Maybe today it will be 15 lakhs, but no more. It is also India's most tribal state. So the largest percentage of its population is tribal. It's also mostly a rural state. Now, it's a state with very few people, but it's not a small state. And look at how it's located. Look at the map of India. It borders Bangladesh on one side, Myanmar or Burma sort of alongside, contiguously, then the state of Tripura, the state of Manipur, and the state of Assam. In fact, the main roadhead going into Mizoram from the plains is through Silchar, which is the capital of the Kachar regions of Assam. Now, this is a crucial state. It used to be a district until the 60s. It was a district called Lushai Hill district with a very small microscopic population in a part of Assam. Then a bunch of events happened whereby people in Mizoram got very angry. They got angry, one, because Mizoram has a unique phenomenon whereby every 50 years, 40 to 50 years, the bamboo in the state flowers. I mean, the bamboo flowers, its flower contains an alkaloid which is sweet, which rats love, but which also makes rats very fertile. So suddenly, millions and millions of rats are produced, and they float all over the place, emptying granaries, destroying the fields, and causing a famine. So this is called Mautam. So there was a Mautam famine in the late 50s, and the people of Mizoram thought that the state capital of Assam, then Shillong, was too far, and nobody had bothered for them. That's when a man called Mr. Lal Denga, who had earlier served in the Indian Army as a Havaldar and was now a clerk with the state government, he formed an organization called Mizo National Famine Front to carry out famine relief, and through that he became popular. The organization became popular. In the course of time, it acquired weapons. As you know, that region is a tough region. What is Bangladesh today was East Pakistan then. There was China next door. Both were supporting insurgencies in India. So he acquired arms and training from them and declared independence on March 5, 1966. He overran many of the garrisons of Assam Rifles, a paramilitary force, and was about to overrun the garrison of Assam Rifles battalion headquarters in Aizawl, where also the families and officers of the civil administration had taken refuge. And then terrible things happened. Mrs. Gandhi, who had just been in the job as Prime Minister for 5 weeks, India was recovering from a war. It was a very fraught period. In emergency and panic, because nothing else could be done, used air power. It sent Indian Air Force to bomb parts of Mizoram. The only time, the first and the last time in India's history that Indian government has used air power against its own people. So that's where this really bitter history began. And then it led to a 2-decade terrible insurgency. There was a terrible insurgency. There were terrible things done by both sides. The insurgents killed a lot of people, civilians, soldiers, officials. The Armed forces also were given Armed Forces Special Powers Act and given a free hand. So there were lots of atrocities carried out. Unfortunately, unlike today, media wasn't so active, civil society wasn't so active. So terrible injustices and cruelties were committed on the tiny people of Mizoram. In fact, learning some lesson from the British experience of Malayan insurgency, Indian Army even tried to resettle distant villages into villages along the roads that they could control, a little bit like the failed Salba Judum experiment much later in Chhattisgarh. Now, with this background, it would have looked like there will never be peace. In fact, in 1975, 13th January 1975, is when the MNF carried out its most sensational attack. Its assassins walked into the police headquarters. The IG, who was the head of the police, he was having a meeting with his intelligence chief and his DIG. These insurgents walked into his office and killed all of them. So suddenly, the entire top brass of Mizoram police was assassinated. So it looked like this war will continue. Then what happened? 10 years later, when Rajiv Gandhi came to power, he reached out to the leader of the Mizo underground, Lal Denga, and they struck a peace agreement. By that time, the army had restored a lot of order, it controlled most of the territory, but there were attacks by insurgents. But now, Lal Denga and Rajiv Gandhi signed a peace accord. It was a wonderful peace accord, one of the high points of Rajiv Gandhi's prime ministership, and I would say one of the high points of India's constitutional power and flexibility. So Lal Denga, along with his followers, came overground. All of them gave up their weapons. They joined the mainstream, and an election was held whereby Lal Denga himself, who wanted a free Mizoram, who had declared a sovereign state, who wanted to be president of the Republic of Mizoram, became the chief minister of Mizoram. So that is a wonderful story. In fact, this persuaded me to develop what I call as the graph of Indian insurgencies, bell curve. So in India, insurgencies rise, the state response rises accordingly. It reaches a point whereby the insurgents know that they cannot win. And that's when they are willing to talk and settle. And then the government has the big heart and sense to talk and make some concessions. And the constitution has the flexibilities. So this happened. Since then, Mizoram has remained peaceful. It has had many elections. Then Lal Denga lost power. Other people came to power. But if you look at the political elite of Mizoram, even in the Congress, you will find that most of the people who have been elected to power are former underground people. So as the bell curve turned, all the same fighters came back into the constitutional fold, and they are now flying the tricolor on their cars. It's a wonderful state. I would say visit it, watch it, and see how that state functions, and enjoy the beauty of Mizo people and Mizo names as well, because every Mizo name has a meaning. In fact, Mizoram itself means, Mi means person, human being, Zo means mountains, Ram means home. So Highlanders home. Why is it important? One, it is important because of where it's located. Second, it's important because it is such a complement to India's diversity. That a small minority of 15 lakh people can have a state which they can run so well. It is a very progressive state. It has almost 100% literacy, and it's had it for a very long time. The small population of Mizos does very well in all India services. In fact, you've seen many of them rise to high stature. Mr. Sangliana, the famous officer in Bangalore who became an MP, is from Mizoram. So this is a very vital state for India. It's also a vital state for India because this state has taught India how former combatants can shake hands and become friends and brothers and sisters forever. I will close this unusual edition of Cut the Clutter with a story. When I went to cover the Mizo National Front Rajiv Gandhi agreement in Aizawl, I was taken to meet, I wanted to meet a young woman called Banlal Zari. Banlal Zari, if I remember correctly, in Mizo it means branch from God's own tree, something like that. Remember I told you about that incident where the IG, the DIG and his SP intelligence were all killed? She was then the secretary to the IG. She was charged with helping the insurgents come in and carry out the terror act. She was convicted and sentenced to a long spell in jail. As part of the peace agreement, she was pardoned. She came over ground and she was now working on the election campaign of Mizo National Front. So I went to her and I asked her, Zari, as everybody called her, Zari, you were fighting for independence. Why are you now joining the Indian mainstream and fighting an election as an Indian state leader? She said, look, we realize that sovereignty doesn't mean independence. So we don't need sovereignty to be independent. And you know, this was 1985-86. That's when Cold War had not ended and Warsaw Pact was very much around. And she said, look, see Poland. Poland has sovereignty, but is it independent? Now, in which other state and which other country would a young woman who had spent so many years in jail for being complicit in a terror act would tell you wisdom like that? So that is how wise Mizo people are. That's how interesting and important that state is. So I thought that I know they don't count for that much when we make our larger calculations in terms of Indian politics, but they are invaluable for us for their diversity, for their talent and what they teach us. So do check out Mizoram, not just its politics, but also go visit Mizoram.